All right, hello. This is Jeannine and John. These folks came up with a little skit today. We're going to do it like we're taping a show that you might watch, an afternoon show on television. And I'm the lucky announcer today. So, welcome to Today in Real Estate. That's the name of the show today. We appreciate having you in our audience. We will be taping our program. Laura Davis is our technical director today. She's going to be putting this online for us, and tonight on WIS TV at 6. All right, we do ask that you remain quiet while we do tape so that Laura doesn't have too many interruptions. Applause is welcome during the program, and I will give you a cue to do that when you need to applaud. So. Very good. We're going to start the show here in just a couple of seconds. We're going to bring up our show host, Mrs. Jeannine Kees, who has put this together for us today. All right?
Thank you. Welcome to the Today in Real Estate. We're so glad you're here in our audience, and today our weekly program is going to be about fair housing. And we know that you're interested in that, and that's where our discussion is going to go. We have with us today 3 panelists, 3 realtors here in our community, Realtor Tina Goddard, Realtor Manny Andre, and Realtor John Kneece. And so they're going to be talking to you about certain questions that we've had come to us through our email, Facebook page, and so forth. And so we hope you enjoy and learn something from this. And we'll be right back here, though, but first we need a word from our sponsor.
Are you confused with all of the information about houses for sale, pricing, and Zillow, Trulia, ListHub, etc.? For the best and most accurate information, go to Realtor.com, the site relied upon by realtors. More viewers and details supported by facts, go to Realtor.com for the answers. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, let's first start with a question that we got from an agent recently in one of our focus groups. And we'll start with you, Tina, if that's okay. How does an agent avoid violating the guidelines in fair housing regarding steering in regards to homes and neighborhoods?
Well, the first step when you're working with buyers should include a preliminary interview to determine what their wants and needs are. During that interview, you would ask questions to kind of help and learn whether they're familiar with the subdivisions or different areas within the county and that type of thing, and what their preferences might be for their family or for themselves in that. And based on that, the home selection is really determined by the buyer, not the realtor. And that helps you to avoid the loop about where to show, getting caught up in that. It's advisable to do this needs assessment with every buyer and keep a copy of that in a folder so that you can always show compliance with the fair housing regulation.
Okay, so a needs assessment and keeping that in the file. Okay, good advice. We've heard this question many times, Manny, and while we can't restrict the buyers from asking these questions, we do need to have some answers which adhere to the fair housing law. How would you suggest we answer this following question? What should an agent say when a buyer says, what kind of people live in this area?
That's a question we hear quite a bit. It's a question usually that concerns people's lifestyles and their own personal concerns, it looks like. But there's also a lot of people that would ask that question with different motives in mind. So we have to keep that in mind. I believe the best answer to say is basically we don't keep any records of demographic areas or subdivisions, and that fair housing belongs to everybody. Everybody's up to it.
Okay, a good way to answer that question. It gives the honest people, an answer, and if their motivation is something less than honesty, then that sets that aside. Good. We have a question from Facebook. A friend asked, how do we answer a seller who is clear to state his objection to showing or selling his home to a member of a protected class? John, can you help me with that
Now,
one?
this is a tough question since we make our living in listing and selling property, but we know that there can be no wobble on this one. We have to stick our guns on it. And we just simply tell the seller that under federal fair housing guidelines and laws, no agent is allowed to accept as a condition of the listing, any request regarding preferential treatment one way or another regarding any of the protected classes. And even though that might be a little tough, it's what we have to do. And we also need to add to this conversation that no agent in the whole state would be allowed to do that. So it doesn't put you at a competitive disadvantage.
Well, that's a tough answer, but if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. Great. On this note, let's go to a break, and then we'll be right back.
All right, this is a commercial. Is every real estate agent a realtor? Most definitely no. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors, the State Association of Realtors, which in our state is the South Carolina Realtors, and their local association, which today our show is provided by the Southern Midlands Association of Realtors. Realtors hold themselves to a higher standard of professionalism through their codes of ethics and emphasis on training and integrity. So when you're ready to buy or sell real estate, be sure you contact a realtor.
Okay, we're back again with Tina, Manny, and John. Let's go to our next question. This comes from a new realtor in the market. And this question is, when writing an ad for print or on the web, how does one avoid the perception of discriminatory language in the presentation? Tina?
That's a good question, Jeannine, and let me start by saying that the local associations, as well as the National Association of Realtors, offers guidelines and suggested words to avoid, to create problems, identifying those protected classes. It's also a great idea to bounce this ad off your broker in charge. That extra set of eyes can sometimes help you catch something that you might not have noticed, previously. As well as keeping in mind that the photos can be as important as the words that you use as well, and even videos.
With so much information on the web now, it sometimes gets scary. But that's good information, and it makes a whole new meaning to the word teamwork. As we move to the next question, was just called in this morning. An agent wants to know how to answer a for sale by owner on the question of fair housing, and how fair housing applies to owners who try to sell their own homes. Manny?
Well, we get this a lot of times. Homeowners think that, they can do anything they want in regards to selling their own home. Not so. An agent shouldn't be in the position of telling a homeowner what the exceptions are, the binding things are to them. Basically, we need to tell them the best practice is to suggest that fair housing is for all people.
Okay, good point there. Looks like an agent has to be aware of many rules and circumstances. So our next question comes from Faye. Faye wants to know if an agent is bound to disclose issues as to demographics and other fair housing to an individual who is signed up as your client. In other words, are we bound to serve their best interest and give information which violates fair housing law in order to meet the state requirement of full disclosure?
This cannot be clear in the law. As agents, we are not to discuss issues which would violate fair housing law. This applies to buyers the same as sellers. You will not be held in violation of full disclosure laws by not disclosing information that might be perceived as violating fair housing laws. We're under no obligation to take that any further and then enter into a discussion with that.
Okay. So, time to pay the bill. We'll be right back after a brief message.
The goal of all realtors and the purpose of the professional realtor is to preserve and protect the American dream of home ownership. Realtors want to provide all Americans with their dream of a home, but also realtors need to protect the attacks on the right to own a home. As Americans, we have opportunities to purchase real estate, but this is not guaranteed without constant diligence. So tell a realtor thank you for protecting and providing the American dream.
Gentlemen also wanted to know how we address service animals. With modern medicine, there's been some changes, I understand, in how agents need to act. So how do we handle a situation where a client or a customer appears with an animal in mind?
There's all sorts of animals that are serving in the medical field as far as in our society today. They can range from the traditional dog, monkey, to miniature horse, basically. And it's suggested may inquire as to what type of training this animal has or what it does, basically, and not refer it to the person, as it can be you know, intrude as, you know, being, what they call discriminating against handicap. And that's something we don't want to do, so we're going to lay off on the animal, do it that way.
So we need to be sensitive and ask
Right.
about the animal and what it's trained to do. Okay, good. The next question is concerning a seller's request for the removal of shoes prior to entry or a non-smoking requirement. John?
While most of us would consider the non-smoking thing to be just simply good manners, there can be some questions that would pop up that would have to do with shoes, and some of those questions could lead you down pathways having to do with religion or things like that. We need to avoid that, and we just don't get into a discussion about it, and just move on and do your job, which is to show the property. And also to adhere to the wishes of the seller. You're supposed to obey any legal command of our client. If the command is to not come in with your shoes on, then that's the way we need to work it. A lot of times in some markets, they will actually produce like booties to wear over your shoes so you don't have to remove them. And if that's the case, that works out even better yet.
Okay, well, we're about out of time. One final question here. We had a question from a broker who said, we want to know how to respond to a question that is pointed to the national origin of a buyer or seller. Tina?
Well, this one is fairly clear. It comes up very often in casual conversation. You need to be aware of this question. It should be handled just the same as what kind of people live here. Just pleasantly state that you're not at liberty to disclose the nationality of your client or the national origin. To get into a conversation with people about that it would clearly be a violation of fair housing.
Well, I want to thank our panel today, Tina, Manny, and John. I know sometimes our clients really don't know where the lines are on matters of fair housing, but it's our responsibility as realtors to speak to that in the interview process and have that fair housing law form initialed and signed by our customers and clients. We hope this discussion has been fun and has been informative for you, and we hope to see you the next time, next week, for another subject. Until then, let's be fair in all of our real estate activities.